You believe deeply in your system, and we believe just as deeply in our system. It is not our common beliefs that have brought us together here, but our common interests and our common hopes. The interest that each of us has to maintain our independence and the security of our peoples, and the hope that each of us has to build a new world order in which nations and peoples with different systems and different values can live together in peace, respecting one another while disagreeing with one another, letting history rather than the battlefield be the judge of their different ideas.
Развернуться в своем движении в другом направлении, к новому мировому порядку, к новой цивилизации.
Even that does not describe why the world has changed so much and why the world has turned so much toward a new world order and a new kind of civilization.
Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided, a world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict, Cold War. Now we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders. A world in which freedom and respect for human rights find a home among all nations.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
George Bush has invoked a new world order without enunciating a new American purpose.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
We would like to bring you a message from the First Lady of the United States, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Good evening and congratulations, Walter, on receiving the World Federalist Association's Global Governance Award. For more than a generation in America, it wasn't the news until Walter Cronkite told us it was the news.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken, the pieces are in flux, soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
Within the next 4 years, we will see the emergence of a new international order.
The beginning of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, perhaps one even greater than at the time of the Industrial Revolution, a new world order was created. When my predecessors were speaking to this event a century ago, the world order of the 19th century they were describing was defined mainly by the balance of military power, and they saw European empires dividing the world between them. From the time of 1945, when my predecessors of the post-war years spoke to you, the world order was simply defined by the high-stakes standoff that characterized the Cold War years. These were orders that were ultimately reflected by political weight and military strength. But today, with Asia already outproducing Europe, India and China are clearly becoming part of our new order, and they're doing so principally because of their economic strength and potential.
All these new challenges are bringing together about the biggest restructuring we have ever seen, not just of the global economy, but of the global order as a whole. And 200 years ago, a famous British Foreign Secretary said that the new world had been called into existence to redress the balance of the old. In 1990, another old world ended, dominated by the Cold War, and people talked then, in 1990, of a new world order. What they actually meant then was a new political order. And what was not foreseen then, but is obvious now from everything that we see and do, what we experience in every day of our life, is the sheer scale and speed and scope of globalization. And it's only now that we can begin to understand that the world order that globalization brings and what it's going to look like, it's driven forward now not just by the balance of military strength, the Cold War times, or ordinary political power. It's being driven forward by a seismic shift in economic power that we see around us. So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future.
It's of course obvious today that the national dimension is not enough. It's a question of common sense. If you want to fight climate change, if you want to provide energy security, we cannot do it alone at the national level. We need more than that. We need European dimension. European dimension is the indispensable dimension through the local to the global. And the more globalization goes, and it's quite obvious that it is there to stay, we need that dimension more.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world that we have to bring about together with other countries a different consciousness of what a world order is. That yes, we are living in a period of tremendous turmoil now. But I think that at the end of this administration, with all its turmoil, and at the beginning of the next, we might actually witness the creation of a new order, because people looking in the abyss, even in the Islamic world, have to conclude that at some point ordered expectations must return under a different system.
Let me summarize my argument to you this evening. Under the momentum of globalization, the world is opening up, and at an astonishing speed. Old boundaries of culture, identity, and even nationhood are falling.
This nation is right now fighting for its survival, but we are also fighting for world peace, and we are also fighting for future world order. The worst thing was that I was standing there with my people, they were bombed, and I was just targeted like them, and as elected president, official in charge of their protection, I couldn't do anything about it. But the point here is It's not about me, it's about the idea of freedom. It's about the future of the whole region. It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
In this new century, Americans and Europeans alike will be required to do more, not less. Partnership and cooperation among nations is not a choice. It is the only way, the one way, to protect our common security and advance our common humanity. That is why the greatest danger of all is to allow new walls to divide us from one another. The walls between old allies on either side of the Atlantic cannot stand. The walls between the countries with the most and those with the least cannot stand. The walls between races and tribes, natives and immigrants, Christians and Muslims and Jews cannot stand. These now are the walls we must tear down.
This is a worldwide crisis, and therefore we must find a worldwide solution. Each region of the world, each part of the world, to begin with the United States and then the European countries and now Asia, are trying to find an answer to the crisis. But this answer will be all the more effective insofar as we find it together, we speak with one and the same voice, and we build together the capitalism of the future. I say things that I deeply believe here. This may be a great opportunity if we do not fall back into the hateful practices of the past.
This is a global financial crisis that requires global solutions.
In the financial crisis, Europe is leading the way towards a global solution.
Et début septembre, le président des États-Unis et l'Europe ont donc proposé plusieurs sommets à partir de la mi-novembre qui porteront sur une nouvelle régulation, une nouvelle gouvernance mondiale.
Today Europe can propose the principles and rules that will shape a new global order.
Je veux dire ma conviction que la crise appelle à la réforme des institutions européennes. La crise appelle à ce que l'Europe puisse apporter une réponse aussi puissante et aussi rapide que tel autre ensemble mondial comme les États-Unis ont pu le faire face au drame qu'a représenté la crise financière.
A kind of occasion where the crisis calls into question old certainties and minds are more open to change. These are very special moments. The goal should be to devise a system of global financial governance adapted to the challenges of the 21st century.
Cette crise, il fallait d'abord essayer de la maîtriser. Cette crise qui appelle d'urgence un nouvel ordre économique, financier, monétaire, cette crise exprime au fond un besoin profond de politique. Le moment où tout le monde aura compris qu'il était temps de changer, temps de donner un nouveau visage à la mondialisation, temps de construire un nouvel ordre mondial, politique, économique, social, assis sur de nouveaux principes et de nouvelles règles. Au nom de l'Europe, en tant que président de l'Union européenne, j'ai proposé que se tienne d'ici à la fin de l'année un sommet mondial pour que soient discutés et décidés ces nouveaux principes, ces nouvelles règles. Il faut que l'Europe se donne les moyens de jouer le rôle qui doit être le sien dans le monde nouveau qui est en train de naître. Il faut que l'Europe se prépare. Notre stratégie économique ne doit pas seulement nous permettre de passer au mieux un moment difficile, elle doit nous permettre de nous donner les meilleures chances possibles de réussir dans le monde tel qu'il est en train de se réorganiser.
But he can give a new impetus to American foreign policy, partly because the reception of him is so extraordinary around the world. I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
Good evening, everybody. President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis. President Obama said globalization can be an enormous force for good. Prime Minister Brown again pushing for what he calls a global New Deal.
As far as the common interests that we're pursuing, look, there is the possibility in the next few months of a global New Deal that will involve all the countries of the world in sorting out and cleaning up the banking system.
On a world level, I think it's absolutely necessary that we go in the direction of a network of regional organizations. We have the European Union in Europe. Maybe tomorrow in Asia they shall create an Asian currency unit, like we have the Economic and Monetary Union in Europe. There is certainly also an enormous intense cooperation more and more in Latin America. There are the Arab countries. So I see a world order in the future with a multipolar world order, where you see a few big regional subcontinental organizations were important. So the network of these organizations, that is maybe the future for this world.
I think it will be very important to create new global institutions which can be really powerful.
The other thing that I do believe is important is that there is no question that this crisis, in the way that has developed, will require some kind of world governance.
I think a new world order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation. We have resolved that from today we will together manage the process of globalization to secure responsibility from all and fairness to all. And we've agreed that in doing so, we will build a more sustainable and more open and a fairer global society.
But it is the awareness itself that will drive the change. And one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
You know, Canada co-chaired the international panel on financial regulation. Our view is that all of these national systems of regulation have to be fixed, but there also has to be international coordination. There has to be an international peer review process for national regulations. So there is transparency, there's peer review and peer assessment. We undergo that in Canada. It's been very useful when we have undergone it, and we think all countries need to be part of that. It does not detract from national sovereignty. Nation states are clearly going to exercise their rights to regulate their financial system. But in a globalized economy, we are going to have to take global responsibilities. And there is going to have to be some semblance of global governance on these questions.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
We will have the kind of global governance that is necessary to ensure the stability and transparency of markets in a way that gives us the benefits of a globalized market economy without the enormous risk.
So let's think about those people down at Neely's Barbecue going home tonight, having heard you. What they've heard you say is the system is really dysfunctioning right now. It's out of control. Nobody's in charge. They've heard you express your own worry that in the next 3 months it could get much, much worse. And they've heard you say that you don't see much good news immediately on the horizon. So let's leave them something to think about as they go home. Let them go home and say, Mr. Soros said, here are 3 things we can do, simply. 1?
Well, deal with the mortgage problem, reduce foreclosures, recapitalize the banks, and then work on a better world order where we work together to resolve problems that confront humanity, like global warming.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order, financial world order. They are kind of reluctant members of the IMF. They play along, but they don't make much of a contribution because it's not their institution. Their share is not commensurate. Their voting rights are not commensurate to their weight. So I think you need a new world order that China has to be part of the process of creating it, and they have to buy in. They have to own it the same way as, let's say, the United States owns the Washington Consensus, the current order. And I think this would be a more stable one where you would have a coordinated policies. I think the makings of it are already there, because the G20, in agreeing to peer reviews, effectively is moving in that direction.
2009 is also the first year of global governance, with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis. The climate conference in Copenhagen is another step towards the global management of our planet.
It's past the point of talking. We know historically that the global governance the sort of agenda to these issues is very hard to try and, with all the best intentions, it's very hard to actually activate.